effective to raise the minimum wage, just to address a few issues that are affected by big, dark money weighing in the Capitol. Today, members of Congress will have a choice. They will have a choice to vote for the people's interest, banning the voices of the American people, or to vote with the special interest in further empowering dark money, which suffocates the system. The person who's done so much to give us that choice today is the chair that brings us this For the People, H.R. 1, of primary importance to us, John Sarbanes from the great state of Maryland. Sarbanes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for designating the For the People Act, H.R. 1. Thank you for entrusting this caucus to assemble a transformative set of democracy reforms that we can give to the American people. Over the last few years, we know, you know, the people have become deeply cynical about politics and government. They don't see their represented in the system. They've said to us, first, we want to get to the ballot box every 2 years without having to run an obstacle course. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, you just want to be able to cast your vote in America. Easy, and convenient and straightforward. We address that in H.R. 1. They said to us, when you get to Washington, act right, behave, be ethical, be accountable, be transparent. And we have a whole set of reforms in H.R. 1 that would do that. And they pleaded with us, don't get tangled up in money. Remember where you came from. Remember who you work for. Our interest, for the public interest, not for the special interest and the big money. And we have a set of robust reforms that pushes back against the of big money. H.R. 1 is designed to restore the voices of Americans who felt left out and locked out. We're excited about the opportunity before us. We are going to push as hard as we can to get this over the finish line. That begins today here in the passage of H.R. 1. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the person who's done more than anybody in terms of the brass tacks, pulling this bill together, getting it through the House, getting it onto the floor. Zoe Lofgren, the chair of the House Administration Committee. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, John. We would not be here today without John Sarbanes and Speaker Pelosi, and that we are extremely important. You know, in this face of the pandemic, a lot of jurisdictions made it easier for people to. They engaged in no excuse absentee voting. They engaged in early voting, and what did we see? The largest number of Americans voting in modern history. More Republicans voted, more Democrats voted, and you know who won? People won. And people won. Because when people participate and own their own government, that's what we need in our country. So HR really is to preserve the opportunity for people to vote. After that enormous turnout, we saw Republican legislatures all over the country try and stop that voting, to stop the absentee voting, to make it harder for Americans to vote. H.R. 1 would put a stop to that. And it's absolutely essential because nothing else, unless the people's voices are heard. We are not going to address climate change unless the American people get to vote. We're not going to $15 an hour minimum wage unless the American people get to vote. So I hope that for all their cynical against it, some of our friends across the at this point, I would like to recognize who was elected for the seat held by our beloved John Lewis The first 300 pages of this bill written by John Lewis, and Congresswoman Williams is now representing his district.
In my home state of Georgia, Republican state legislators have unleashed a torrent of voter oppression schemes to make it incredibly hard to vote and to silence our voices, especially communities of color. As in the 2020 election, and in the 2021 runoff election, Georgians are not afraid to fight for what so many take for granted in this country, including vote. But the sad part is, y'all, we shouldn't have to. No one should be subjected to the daily threats of their rights being taken away. HR 1, the For the People Act, would put a stop to the voter suppression that we're seeing being debated right now in Georgia by taking an aim at the institutional barriers. HR 1 would also create a national standard for voter registration because your zip code should not determine your access to the ballot box. I'm proud to support HR 1 and uplift the voices of Georgians who are right now being silenced due to voter suppression. I'm also incredibly for this bill because 300 pages of it were written by my friend, my predecessor, my mentor, Congressman John Lewis. And let me be clear, this bill is the good trouble that he fought for his entire life. Mr. Lewis authored Title I of HR 1 and the historic reform efforts in this bill. We must honor his legacy by passing this monumental legislation, and I am honored to be upholding his legacy today, 5th Congressional District.
Good afternoon. First of all, let me say I'm out of Orange County, California, and if you want to have a lesson on voter suppression, come down to Orange County. We'll talk about it. We'll get you about an coffee. We'll get you about an hour's lecture. But today, I want to thank Madam Speaker, Mr. Sarbanes, and so many others that are standing here today for all the good work on free and fair elections. And all of you are going to listen to a lot of debate, a lot of discussion on For the People. Let me break it down. 3 basic principles. Number 1, it guarantees that every American that has a legal right to vote can vote. Number 2, that every legally cast ballot. And number 3, the reason we're sent to Washington to represent the people, to put the public interest ahead of special interest, and that means getting dark money out of this elections, and that means getting big money out of Washington. Not complicated, very simple. That is why the vote we're about to take is so historically important. Let's restore confidence in our democracy, and let's pass HR 1 for the people. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my colleague from the great state of Alabama, Representative Sewell. Ma'am.
As the proud representative of Alabama's Civil Rights District, Birmingham, Montgomery, it is my honor to be the lead sponsor of HR 4, the John Roberts Voting Rights Advancement Act, which HR 1 will restore democracy for the people. This Sunday, March 7th, we will come Bloody Sunday. Our nation will reflect on the extraordinary sacrifices made by ordinary Americans in my hometown of Selma. Foot soldiers were beaten. They shed a little blood on a bridge in Selma, daring to fight the equal right to vote for all Americans. Never did I the cause for which our beloved colleague, Congressman John Lewis, foot soldiers, the cause for which they marched 56 years ago, the Voting Rights Act, would again require congressional action for its full protections. This reminds us that progress is elusive, and every generation nation must fight and fight again. As legislatures across this country, and even in a court case before the Supreme Court this week, the right to vote is under attack. We know that it works best when everyone can participate fully. But we also know that voter suppression is alive and well. Old battles have become new again. The legacy of the foot soldiers like John Lewis requires that we pick up that baton, and the baton of voter access, the baton of voter, and we continue the next leg. Their cause is now our cause too. Progress is only made when we fund it, when we fight for it. John said, ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is a struggle for one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is a struggle for a lifetime, and each and every one of us must do our part. We leaders must lead, but every American must vote. We need to make sure that access to the ballot box is assured by everyone. As I close, I am reminded of John's last visit to the bridge. Every year we had an opportunity with John and to go on a pilgrimage. John, last year was the 55th anniversary, and many of us didn't think he was going to attend, but he did. John fights for what he believes in, and he stands up in times of good trouble. To remind all of our colleagues of his last call to action on that day. Stricken with cancer, John said, never give in. We must keep our eyes on the prize. We must pass H.R. 1 and H.R. truly restore democracy to America for the people.
Thank you, Congresswoman Sewell, because that inspiration will take us over the line. I am Teresa Fernandez, third district of New Mexico, and I also want to thank the Speaker and Representative. Where are they? Representative Sarbanes and Lofgren, because they have given us both the vision and the leadership. You know, Americans across the country, political affiliation, they just want a democracy that works, a democracy that values and empowers them. We should strive for democracy, example of democracy across the world, and that's exactly what For the People Act will do. You know, voting should be a celebration. It should be a celebration, not an endurance event. Where Black, Latino, and Native American voters need to wait for 6 to 8 hours just to increase voter participation should be all of our goals, Republicans and Democrats, because anything less is a violation of democratic ideals. We must pass the For the People Act because, yes, we heard it, right? Democracy is where we start to inspire us, the issues that the people overwhelmingly support, like climate change, like lowering the cost of health care, and like building an inclusive society. I want to just say muchísimas gracias to all of the leadership, to all of you who will be supporting us, and turn it over to my colleague, Mondare Jones from the great state of New York.
In American history, and that is deeply personal to me. Unlike many of the people we're used to seeing in our politics, I don't come from money or from a political family. I was raised by a young single mom who worked multiple jobs just to provide for us, and we still needed Section 8 housing and food stamps to get by. When I think back to the struggles of my family, they can be traced to one common cause, and that is our broken democracy. The reason healthcare, higher education, and housing are out of reach for so many millions of Americans is due to the fact that our democracy to reflect the will of everyday people. Independent redistricting commissions will help change that. When United States Congress, political insiders came to me and they did not ask me what I would be campaigning on. They asked me, could I raise? That is a shameful distortion of our democracy, and it must end. Public financing will help change that. Many people were surprised when I defeated a billionaire who tried to purchase this congressional seat. My election should not be an exception to the rule. Rather, it should be the norm. When we pass H.R. 1, thank you.
Mandir, thank you, and thank all of my I want to thank this amazing caucus standing behind us. H.R. 1 is a collection of over 60 pieces of legislation produced over a period of many, many years, assembled into an overarching package that can make a difference for the American people. The choice here is clear. You've heard it. You can win on the basis of your ideas and the programs that you put forward, which is what we choose to do. Or you can try to win by suppressing the vote, drawing unfair districts across the country, and using big money to spread information. We choose to open up the ballot box. We choose fair districts that respect voters. We choose to fight for the public interest, not the special interest. And all of those things are none of those things are controversial. Everything I just mentioned is for the benefit, not exclusively of Democrats, but for the benefit of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. That's what this is about. So we're excited today. We're excited about making progress. We're excited about H.R. 1 to restore a government that is truly of, by, and for the people. Thank you all today for coming.